So I was extremely surprised to find out that the legendary Marvel, Spider-Man, X-Men creator Stan Lee had actually dabbled and stepped a little bit into manga. See, this idea of crossing over comics and that whole Western scene into Japanese manga wasn't, unheard of, but it was just kind of unusual for the time. That said, the story we're going to be talking about today actually isn't just created by Stan Lee himself. It's actually a collaboration between Stan Lee and the creator of Shaman King. So we have two great, amazing, iconic creators for the time coming in and combining both of their styles, which is obviously very different just given the kind of content that they're making, but also pretty similar because it is comics and manga. And the story we end up having here is Ultimo. Now, Ultimo was published in 2008 and has a total of about 12 different volumes, but good luck trying to collect these or buy them physically. They're extremely hard to find and rare, at least a good portion of them are. So if you're willing to spend $800, $700, then maybe go buy them, but I'd watch the entire video before you do that, but that's also why I don't have any physical versions with me for this video. And also, just this series in general is kind of nowhere to be found. It's a forgotten series, honestly. You can't find it on the Viz Media Shonen Jump app. You can't find it on Comixology. You can't find it on the Kindle store. You pretty much can't find this series anywhere digitally either. So to read this series, we kind of have to set sails for the legally interesting seas, if you know what I'm saying. So either you have to pay the insane price tags for the physicals, which I don't think is honestly personally worth it, even if the series was amazing. So we're going to talk about my feelings on the series obviously here, but like I said, it's hard to find, so you're gonna have to find some creative ways to go and read the series online, which is honestly really unfortunate that we have a series created by two iconic creators that is just almost lost to time. Really, you just can't find the series easily at all. I'm not sure if this is like a rights issue or if the series generally just sold really poorly, so they just didn't see a reason to keep printing more, but I would be interested to see if they did like a collected edition or some sort of like omnibus version of this series, just because it is kind of an iconic piece of work because it is Stan Lee and the creator of Shaman King's work together, so it does have some relevance as far as that goes. But either way, this video is gonna be spoiler free, so I'm gonna talk about my feelings and let's just kind of get into Ultimo. Now, Ultimo is a pretty short series, like I said, around 12 volumes, and it tells the tale of two different robots basically. We have Ultimo, the name of the character, and Vice are the two main characters that we kind of focus on. And basically these robots were represented and created to kind of show off the pure ultimate versions of good and bad. And the story kind of treads that whole line of finding out which is stronger and which is kind of better in a moral place, good or evil, good or bad, that whole thing. And kind of the purpose generally is to find out which one is stronger. That is the most basic and kind of generic way I can explain the story, but overall my feelings after reading it entirely is I feel kind of mixed about it. First, let me just honestly start off by saying this: it's super lame that the series is not available widely or just available at all, really. And also, even then, I don't think the series was properly translated, because I found multiple different versions of the series online that were translated very differently. So even then, the English translations are not great. Even if you find any random one, I'm sure there'll be either spelling inconsistencies, weird naming, weird vocabulary, or just awkward, just like weird spelling, I guess, is pretty much the name of the game. It's just kind of awkward and the translation wasn't really done well. But in my opinion, this series would have been a great introductory series for new readers. I think with Stan Lee's name being attached to it, this would have been a semi-easy series to kind of sell to Western audiences, and also kind of just pitch and sell to more the Marvel, DC Comics kind of audiences that are familiar with Stan Lee's work. Especially at the time, this is early 2000s, this is 2008, so at the time manga wasn't really as popular as it is now. Obviously now you can find it pretty much in any bookstore, but back then it was a whole different environment. Now, that aside, I do think this is a great series for new readers because the storyline is super easy to follow, and the concepts that the story shows and kind of displays are super easy to understand. They're not confusing, they're not over convoluted, they're really easy to follow. And the pacing is actually really good here. The pacing is quick and fast. It doesn't really slow down too much, even in the middle parts of, chapters and volumes. It doesn't slow down really at all. I like the pacing a lot in this series, and it keeps a reader like me who kind of has a short attention span, going throughout the series, and, keeps my attention. I'd actually kind of lump this manga into like the Demon Slayer category. Simple, decent action, kind of funny, and overall pretty easy to get into and recommend to people just because it's a pretty, it's a normal series. It's a normal series, but this kind of gets into my huge overall thoughts entirely, and they're not super positive. In general, the series is kind of mid, and that's why I think it's a good series to recommend to people, because the chances of someone liking it and not liking it are kind of in the middle. It's a mid series. Like, at worst, they're just kind of feeling meh about it, but I don't think anyone's going to be in love with this series, but I also don't think it's going to alienate too many people or make them hate the series either. And I think when you look at it as far as an introductory manga, it does have a lot to offer and it is a fun read. However, when you look at it through the lens of two super iconic creators coming together to make, a limited series, it does fall flat and feel really disappointing just when you look at it in that aspect. Like, would you really want the best comic creator and one of the best manga creators to come together and just make something that's decent and average? Or would you want them to come together and just make, a super insane, just wild story that either pushes the envelope for what storytelling is, but at least try something different, or at least has a great storytelling narrative that, while not amazing or different, does still deliver a great storyline all the way through? This doesn't really do either of those. It kind of just tells a story and then finishes. Ultimo's just ultimately very disappointing when you look at the creators behind it. I get the same feeling from when I read Platinum End a while ago. When I read the first few volumes of that series, I just had this feeling of, wow, these are the creators of Death Note making a just kind of boring, unfulfilling series. It's just a little saddening, I guess, and just obviously disappointing. I get that same feeling here with Ultimo. While I wasn't expecting anything amazing or jaw-dropping, I just kind of expected more, I guess, than what I got, and what I got just wasn't that great. Now, I did do some research on Ultimo, and yes, do research in my videos. I make an effort for sure, whatever. When I did some research, I found out that Stan Lee had been quoted by saying that his goal with Ultimo was to create something that was pleasing for both Japanese audiences and Western audiences as well. So that way both could kind of read it and get something out of it. So I don't know if maybe trying to appease to both sides kind of just made the series feel watered down and dumbed down because I wasn't really willing to risk anything or try anything that was too different for, either audience. So it just kind of ended up just sailing along and again being kind of a mid-series. So it is unfortunate because I think this series could have been a really good showing of what happens when you take, a manga creator and a comic creator and kind of mix them together. We could have definitely seen more manga creators coming over to Western stuff and start doing more stuff with Western comic books. And same thing with comic creators going over to Japan and doing more, Japanese manga. So I feel like if this would have done better, we probably would have seen more collaborations between different creators, which is obviously just unfortunate. Again, I'm not saying the series is bad. I'm just saying it doesn't live up to the hype of either of the creators, honestly. And also, I just don't know why this series is reselling for so much money. The only reason I can think of is just the fact that there's not that many copies out there because it didn't sell that well. But even then, I don't even really understand the hype for the series. Even if I had it physically, I would just sell it just to get rid of it. Not even for the money, but just to not have it take up, space in my shelf. I don't even see it's worth owning other than just the fact of saying that you have Ultimo because it's a rare series. So it's kind of like,
oh wow, you have Ultimo, really, that's crazy or whatever. But
it's not a great series. I would much rather pick up anything that's currently running, honestly, right now. I think there's totally room for a seasoned comic creator and manga creator to come together and collaborate on one series and make something really amazing. And I'm sure it's happened already. We've seen people like Oda has talked about his love for, Western comics before. You get what I'm saying? Both Western and Japanese creators have expressed likeness towards each other. So it would be cool to see more collaborations come through. And there's a lot of Marvel-like stuff going on with manga right now. And manga's really blown up since then. So there is totally a chance that we see more collaborations like this in the future. I just hope they're actually good. Not to say this was bad, but it just wasn't as good as I think it could have been, just especially when you attach the names to it. Overall, that's my thoughts on Ultimo. Have you guys read the series? Have you thought about buying it? Please don't. Comment what you guys think about this series below if you have any experience with it. Did I make you want to read it? Did I make you not want to read it? Go ahead and click here for some video, I'm not sure, and click here for another video, whatever, and subscribe. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I do appreciate it a lot, and have a good one.